it happens, we're headed on our way to go show a house to a buyer. The house just hit the market yesterday, and in the remarks it says that the seller's not going to review offers until Saturday. Well, it's only Thursday, and the seller went ahead and took an offer. I called the agent as soon as we found out it was pending on our way here. They said that it's about the cleanest offer that you can get. So it's cash, no inspections, closing quickly, and our buyer didn't stand a chance. They're doing conventional loan. So instead of going to show this house to a buyer who's been looking for 3 months, a friend of mine is looking to get into real estate investment. So we're gonna go look at a couple houses that need a boatload of work, so that we can kind of educate our new investor on what they're looking for, what's a good purchase, what's not a good purchase. So we're about to go look at some stuff that needs a lot of work. You should enjoy this. Every day, orange J's. That's all I wear. So this is a vacant house. So here's the deal with this one. It got listed on June 10th for $142. They tried to sell it last winter, it didn't happen, for $130. So they go back on the market at $142. My guess is that they did a little bit of something to the house to relist it at $142. Like these windows look newer, they probably did some touch up to the deck or something like that. Listed it at $142 something, didn't sell. They just dropped it on the 17th and today's the 30th. So they dropped it 13 days ago to $129.9. And so I'm working for 2 weeks. My guess is they don't have any offers right now.
So if somebody like me was to buy this and want to renovate it and make it into an income property, 30 grand down, buy it, put 50 to 100 grand in it, I'm guessing it probably needs a lot of work.
Honestly, it doesn't need that much work. Depends on who you're renting to. So like right now, the floors need to be cleaned up, maybe retouched. We have no idea what the HVAC condition is. It's kind of rusted. It might be from 2003 based on the dates on the PVC pipes on the thing. So my guess is that 20 grand in this house would go a long way to get it to a base like college rental kind of thing. And honestly, I really wouldn't take it too much higher than that, because you got a 5-bedroom house and it's in a neighborhood of houses. Let's say that you're all in this house for like 165. It's about average. You might be able to push the after repair value number up to closer to 200, but you're gonna have to do stuff where the rate of return isn't there.
But you're out. If you were to flip it, you're out paying for the market. It's like my original house I had. My wife wanted a pool. Our house was already, the average house was like 175. We were 225. I put a pool in.
Yeah.
There's nobody buying the house in the market.
Yeah, that's where, I mean, so when you're buying an investment property, you know, let's say that your first exit strategy is to flip it and get out of it, right? You can really over improve a house so that when you go to sell it, it's like, I'm not making any money on this. But and where investors make a lot of mistakes is they improve it for what they would want. Mm-hmm. Instead of improving it for like, well, what would this neighbor like to have, or what would a renter like to have in a house like this? It's like, no, they don't need granite countertops. They need something that's a nice clean kitchen with good floors.
Have you seen the story of, what's his Zell? Sam Zell? Mm-mm. Have you seen his story? You know who he is? Mm. Oh, he's a billionaire real estate guy.
Should probably know who that is.
He's probably in his 70s. Well, he's old school. And I watched a documentary the other day on YouTube, where people are probably watching this at some point, about how he got into business. He was a college student and went to a guy who had just bought this property to make apartments for college students and said, hey, I want to manage it for you. I'm going to come in and make these apartments appealing to the college students, because they were all just not appealing. And he did it. Well, he eventually built up, by the time he graduated from college and law school, owned like 15 or 20 properties. Mm-hmm. He couldn't get a job as an attorney because every law firm that was interviewing him said, you're going to be in real estate eventually. You're not going to leave. He ended up getting a job and lasted 4 days and went back to real estate. But his whole thing was, he said exactly what you said. He would find a building near a college. He's like, I'm not renovating it and outfitting it to my needs. I'm doing it to a college kid that's going to enjoy it, but probably break shit the next 6 months.
So a couple things about this place. The first thing that you notice when you get out of your car is that there's a shitload of steps going up to the just to get into the house. That was a workout. So it's like, okay, this is not like my empty nester style end result. Like this is going to be somebody who's young enough that just doesn't care. They can haul their groceries up steps and not have to complain about it. The other thing too is if you put this house 2 or 3 blocks that way, the price just doubles or triples because you can see downtown Cincinnati.
Okay.
And your target market opens up to people who want something a little nicer. They want that view. They're willing to pay for it. You know, they can bring somebody to their house and say, look what I've got, kind of thing. So that's like when you're in an area, like you were talking about the guy who didn't know what they were doing selling a house down in Florida. Yeah. Like when you're pricing a house like this, you really have to take into consideration in an urban area. It's like it's street to street. Like you might go 10 houses that way and get a completely different result.
And a different audience. Because like this one, I look at this and this isn't a place that a lot of adults are gonna want to mess with, but you get a college kid, then a block away is Penn Station, little grocery store, gas station, we're 10 minutes from NKU, probably 20 from UC.
So the thing that I think about too is that, this house is a little too far gone, if you will, for the end consumer. Like I'm gonna buy this house and I'm gonna move into it. It's like, well, it needs floor work, it might need a roof soon, HVAC probably isn't working.
Deck structure looks good, the top part just needs staying probably.
Yeah, I mean a little redo on the deck there, but it might be priced too high for the end consumer and for the work needed, and it's priced too high for an investor because an investor is probably going to want to come in $20,000-$30,000 lower to get it so that they can fix it up and get it. So
what would this, how big is this? Give me a little tour.
Honestly, man, like in Northern Kentucky, one of the big pet peeves of a lot of people who move here is that square footage isn't used like readily. I would say this house is probably 2,500 to 2,800 square feet.
It's 2 floors?
It's 2 floors, and I think that back side of the house is an addition, which adds the square footage on there.
Is this connected to another house or is it standalone?
No,
I couldn't tell.
It's standalone house, street parking only, not much of a yard at all.
So this parking spot back here is something else?
Yeah, so like I was saying outside, the things that I noticed right away are things that are going to impact resale. It doesn't have a downtown view, which is okay. Most of them don't. And you got to walk up all those steps to get here. So I was like, okay, I already know who a target audience is going to have to be on this thing.
20 years.
As far as condition, I was surprised for $130,000 that the house is in this good a condition. It has new windows. It has a repaired deck, high efficiency furnace. So the condition's not bad. I was actually pleasantly surprised.
Kitchen, everything down here, then bedrooms upstairs?
Yeah, laundry's on the first floor because the basement's a little creepy. You got a kitchen in the back.
Oh, okay, I see that.
So a lot of times too, like people want to buy a house and they want to be nice for the renters. You'll hear me talk about tenant proofing a house. It's like, because you got to think when you buy something to rent it out, you want to put nice carpet in there so it's nice, right? Absolutely not, because whenever you go to turn this place over, you're repainting, you're cleaning carpets, you might have to replace carpets and all that. If you can get a floor to put into a house that lasts you through 5 or 6 tenants, that's less turnover costs, that's less turnover time. And I mean, I've seen college rooms, like let's just say we rent this out to 5 college kids because it's a 5-bedroom. That lease is going to stay in place for like 10 years, and one's going to leave, another one will take their place, and it'll just kind of keep revolving.
This is, I mean, I gotta look at it. Like I can tell the floor's a little slammed in, and so a person that's wanting to buy this to live in it isn't gonna want that.
Right.
College kid doesn't care. Got a little patio, they can put a grill out here, a little patio set.
The deck upstairs is huge.
Oh, it's gigantic.
Yes, ginormous. You got shaded deck or shaded patio back here. So like this seems to me like, hey, we want to live cheaper, so let's all move into the same house. And it's got good entertaining space for people. So the main thing is too is just kind of want to make sure that they're like, you look at the proximity of the neighbors. Like if these people over here have like a swing set and a kid's sandbox and all this stuff, and like these people over here look like they take really good care of their property, and I stick 5 college kids in here, like I might have problems like code violations or noise ordinance or something like that. So you always want to kind of look around and see what you're working with. And in some instances, you might knock on the doors of the neighbors and just say, hey, what do you know about the house next door? And
they'll say, oh, they moved out because of this, or the basement, or the foundation.
They've had to clean that sewer out 3 times this month because it keeps leaking into their basement. It's like, well, the seller's not going to tell you that.
What you said about the multiple kids, my daughter's in college at Eastern, and 2 of her friends are part of an apartment that's like 6 bedrooms. And it's the same thing. The ones that live there, and every year somebody new comes in.
Yeah, I know why.
So let's say you got it for $120, and you put, typically people that buy these to rent them out will put 20 or 30% down?
20% down, probably.
So you put, let's say you put even 100. So you finance 100 grand. What's the monthly nut on 100 grand?
$800.
800 bucks, and you got 5 bedrooms, 400 bucks a kid, 2 grand a month.
I'd say conservatively 400 a kid, probably 500. So you'd be making $2,000 to $2,500 a month. If your payment's only $800, then you're making what, $1,500 to $1,800 a month.
You got your taxes because you're not gonna put that on a college kid.
Well,
they won't understand.
If you bought it for an even 100, that 800 includes your taxes and insurance.
Okay. So that's a good investment then.
Yeah.
Now, when you do these, how do you project? Okay, I rent it for a year. I'm gonna have 10 grand every time I flip this. Do you have a number you come up with?
10 grand to flip. I mean, to turn
it back over.
I mean, so like, if you rent it for a year, you want to consider 10% in maintenance cost, right?
Okay.
So that's painting, flooring, plumbing, electric, everything like that. So if I'm making 25 grand, it's making 30 grand a year at 2,500 a month, right?
Yeah.
So 30 grand a year, I'm gonna budget 3 grand for maintenance each and every year, whether it turns over or not.
And you're 800 to a grand in on everything else, so you're still $10,000 profit.
Mm-hmm.
If you have $10,000 profit over 6 or 7 years, the house is paid off at that point as well.
So if you look at $10,000 profit, you put 20 grand down and you invested 20 grand into it, you're making 10,000 on 40 grand of cash investment. You're making 25% cash on cash return at that point.
It's solid.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Amazing.
That's if you didn't overlook something when you were buying it.
Yeah, because then you got some major repair that costs you a new roof and a new air conditioning, you're 20, 30 grand.
Yeah, because a lot of people get very excited. They're like, oh my gosh, I can have this house. And then before they know it, they didn't inspect the sewer line. Well, the stuff starts backing up because somebody flushed a tampon or a condom. And then the place backs up, and the next thing you know, they're ripping out your front yard, and they're an $18,000 check you got to write to.
Well, that's what happened with my building. When I bought the building, I was already, by the time I had the inspection done, I was sold. I was excited I was done, and the inspector was like, you probably need 1, maybe 2, maybe all 3 air conditioners redone. And so I went and knew it, worst case thing, okay, 15, 20 grand, that was 38. But even at the time when the guy said, hey, when your inspection comes back, bro, we've already negotiated, we're done. I was so deep into it that I was like a little kid that opened Christmas presents.
Yeah.
And and at that point I said, you know what, I mean, I got it for $250,000 less than it probably would have sold anyways.
That's my number one thing. So I've kind of taken a few new investors under my wing and like just try to coach them. Like, house hits the market for 29 grand. This was probably 4, 5, 6 years ago. House hits the market for 29 grand. I was like, dude, you couldn't pay me to take this house. Like, but it's only 29 grand, and I can fix it up and I can sell it for this much. I'm like, you couldn't pay me to take that house because it's gonna cost you more money to get it to where it needs to be than you are paying for the house. And I've talked more new investors out of buying stuff, and I've talked them into buying it just because they get all, they get excited about the opportunity, but they don't use their logic of actually crunching the numbers. And I'd say that's probably the number one thing about new investors is that they let emotion and excitement take over when they should kind of slow down.